Again, I know we didn't use a normal map for that because it's this raw iron work won't really benefit from having a normal map on it. I do want to edit the function though. And just name our slot here correctly. Again though, we're going to bring the highlights up on this to about a mid-grey. And we're going to knock it back to about maybe 10% on that. Let's move to the next one. We're going to call this one Metal Dome R2. That's just because the when I created that dome, I broke it up into two sections. There's the main section through here, and then there are these decorative pieces that go around the outside of it, as you can see here. Let's edit our function. Again, let's go to our highlights, make sure it's about a mid-grey. And 10% on the highlight intensity. What's next? Now we have the lower ring here, I think, by the look of it. Yep. Dome ring bottom painted. So dome ring B for bottom and P for painted. Dome ring bottom. Should be this one here, I think. Dome ring bottom painted, yep. Let's edit our function, name our slots. Change our gamma. And move on. But it's don't work again, no highlight. No, leave the highlight black. These are the main columns here. The tops of the main columns at least here. And we're calling that main column, TGA. Main column. To the point where I put those. What is that? Oh, it's a mosaic tile, okay. Large column. No, it's not that one. I would have thought I would have had it here. Yeah, it is this one here, so it's M column normal. I know because I'm looking at the texture here. I can see the what the texture looks like. That's the texture we're using for our bit diffuse here. So let's edit our function. Texture and normal. Move on to the next one. This is going to be that second part of the column, so it's the middle part. An M column pillar. Okay, so we're going to call this one main column pillars. import our normal map. It should be this one here, I think, from memory. That's the one. Fix our function. Fix our gamma. Again, all stone, so highlights all black. Okay, now this is that center tile that runs underneath of the dome, the main mosaic tree of life texture that we're using. I'm just going to call it mosaic. Let's load in the normal map for that. Mosaic tile normal, it should be this one here. Now this is a large texture, it's a 4K normal map and a 4K texture. That's why viewers just complaining a little bit here. You can see it's actually a 4K texture. So the normal map is 4K too. And that was why I was saying generally sometimes you'll knock those 4K normals back to 2K, but because we're doing renders here in view, I want to keep it quite high. When I take it into Unreal though, I'll probably knock it back to 2K. Let's edit our function here. Make sure we change our gamma to 1. Now again, with these highlights we're going to go to a mid-grey. Again, because it's tiles. It's very dirty tiles though, so again I'm going to knock it back to about 10%. Let's move on to the next one. This is center outer edge painted. So center outer E for edge and P for paint. What is that on the model? Okay, that's the ring that runs around the outside. Again, I remember we did not create a normal map for that because it's a small part of the model. You only see it, a very small section of that cylinder. It wouldn't benefit from a normal map, so we didn't create one. Again, no, because it is part of the tile, it is a tile, I'm going to bring it up to a mid-grey on the highlight and take it to about 10%. I just want to edit the function and rename that though. Okay. Next one. Okay, that's the ring that runs around the top of the top of the bottom of the dome. Again, that's not normal map. And what are we calling it? Center ledge is what it's called. Again, it's cement, I think, from memory, so there'll be no highlight, and like I said, there is no bump on it. No normal map, I should say. Next one. Okay, these are the main tiles that run around the top of the garden terrace, those white tiles. What are we calling these? Upper terrace tiles, painted 2, upper terrace tiles. painted up too. So let's load in the normal map for that. Where did I put that? Oh, Terrace. Upper tiles. Upper terrace tiles are too. Again, now this is a 4K texture and it's going to have a 4K normal map. I'll open that up, give View a few minutes because it's going to complain usually. And that's View complaining to me, saying, look, I don't like what it's doing. I'll make the screen go black. Okay, let's load it up. Let's rename it before we work on the highlight here. So, texture for that one. Normal for that one. Make sure our gamma is 1. We will jump into our highlights here and make it again a mid-grey. Again, I'm going to knock it back to that 10% because it's a very dirty tile texture. I don't want it too shiny. I may up this one a bit though because the tiles are a little bit larger than the ones at the bottom, so they may reflect more. A higher highlight might be better, but we'll wait till we do a couple of test renders before we look at that. So for the moment I'm just going to leave it on 10%. Let's move on to the next one. Light space painted, okay. Light space P should be good. Let's bring in the normal map. Light space is this one here. Light space painted is this one here. The normal. And we'll do our renaming here. Override gamma to 1. Again, it's stone, so no highlight. Highlight black. Next texture. Okay, this is the large part of the base of the garden terrace. That's sandstone. Terrace base is what we're going to call this. Call it terrace base. P painted. It has watermarks painted on it. Let's pull in our normal map, and again, this is going to be a 4K texture. I wanted to keep that because that base is such a large part of the model. I needed to use a large texture, and again 4K is what the texture size is, so 4K is what the normal map will be, and View will again black out my screen because it doesn't like it. This old version doesn't like it anyway. I'm just keeping an eye on my memory, my computer memory usage, because every time I load a normal map up it increases my computer memory, and I need to swap out the targets for JPEGs. So we're nearly at the end of assigning all of our materials here, so we should be good. Let's edit our function. So I don't think there are any more 4K textures apart from those few we have to worry about. And it's the 4Ks that cause View to not like it. This old version of View. You won't be having these problems using the new 2015 version that you download from their website, so it's only because this version is so old. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Okay, now the angel statue is actually a 4K as well, so we will be pulling in one more 4K again. Angel, actually no, because we're not using a normal map on the angels because they're detailed enough without a normal. I know when I created them and sculpted them up in ZBrush that they had enough detail in them. They didn't need to have a normal map applied to them. So there are no normal maps on these statues, the angel statues. These are the pointing angels, so I just do want to name my textures correctly, so we'll jump into the function editor and name that up. Again though, stone, so black for highlight, no highlight color on that. Next one. Okay, now this is the branches of the ivy. I didn't actually use a texture map for that, I just used a plain color. Because most of the branches are hidden anyway. You could assign a texture map, and I have done that in the past. I'm just going to leave it as brown though, for now, anyway. If when we start doing some test renders it looks like it's out of place, then I'll change it to a color map, a bitmap. But at the moment we're just going to leave it as straight color. So we're not going to make any changes here. Now this is where we start changing the textures for the leaves and the flowers. As I was mentioning yesterday, I noticed a lot of people when they use Vue and do renders forget that they have to have specific settings for their plant models that they import, and they often forget to do that, and they leave it the way that they set up the rest of the model that they've imported. And what you find will happen is when you do a render in Vue, you're going to get really dark and harsh shadows happening on the leaves and on the flower petals. And it's just not going to look right, and that's because they haven't set up backlighting on the plant part. So backlighting is only usually used on plants, not on hard surface models like the rest of the Terrace here, but for the leaves, for the flowers, and for the stamen, anything to do with a plant, you'll want to put backlighting on. So I'll show you what I mean by that here. So we have our leaf here. I'm not going to put a bump on it, so I'm not going to, or will I? You could apply a normal map to the leaf. Hey Smurfberry Barbecue, it's good to see you, and you managed to pop in a bit earlier today, which is good. We're working on setting up the materials here for our garden terrace in Vue version 9 before we export it to take it into Vue version 2015. And I'm just explaining that if you're using Vue and you import plants, you've got to make sure that you set up your textures correctly, your materials correctly for plants. Otherwise you're going to get some really weird things happening when you're trying to do a render. It's just not going to look right. Now you could put a normal map on the leaves for the plant. I don't really think it's necessary. If you're going to be zooming right up into this model to do a render, like you're going to get really close to those leaves, then probably put a normal map on them. I don't think I will. I think I did create a normal map though. This is leaf 1, I think. Yeah, let me just rename this for a sec. So leaf 1. I'm going to see if I created a normal for it or not. It won't be here, it'll be in my main texture folder. I did create a normal for it, so I'm going to pull it in. Again, I'm going to do that because whoever uses my model here, if they do decide that they want to zoom right up, because the model is high, the texture detail is high enough that they can get right in on the model. So they may actually want to get a really close-up render of part of those leaves and flowers. So I will put a normal map on it. If you're not going to be doing that though, I'd say don't put a normal map on. But we will. I'm just going to edit my function while I remember here to change our names and our normal map. Leaf 1 normal. And leaf 1 this is leaf 1 normal, the other one is texture. I got it wrong. I'm confusing myself. Texture. Remember to change the gamma here on the leaf normal map to 1. Okay, so the leaves. Getting back to setting up the materials. We've got our diffuse map. We've loaded in our normal map here in the bump channel. For our highlights here, we want to make sure that that's set to white. We want to edit our function here on variable highlights. Now, I'm going to copy my diffuse map here for a minute, because I want to load in a specular map. So I created a specific specular map for the leaves. Where did I put it? Okay, it's this one here. You guys know what a spec map is. It's just a grayscale image of what the specular highlights should look like, and I'm going to use that specifically for the leaves because I don't want just a general shine to them. I want it to be specific to the texture underneath. I'm just going to hook that up here to my I'm going to hook it up as the grayscale output here, not the alpha output. So you load in your spec map, and I did that just by copying my diffuse here by hitting Control C, finding a spot and hitting Control V, and then I just replaced the texture with my specular map, and then I just attach that here to link it up to my highlights. You do that in the function editor, okay? I'm just going to rename the leaf one here spec instead of texture because we copied it from the texture. Specular. Okay, so we have our variable highlight loaded up with our specular map here, the one that I created it in Photoshop. You can use any program to do it. We have a white highlight. We're going to set our intensity here to 50 for the leaves. Our highlight global size we're going to set to 60 for the leaf. And these will vary between the leaves and the flower petals. So these are the settings that I've over all the years of using Vue have worked really well for me. So 50 for the highlight intensity. If you must be using a spec map though to get this to work and look right. So use a spec map for leaves on any plants you're rendering in Vue. Set the global intensity to 50. Set the highlight global size to 60. And leave that at 0 here at the bottom. So it's an isotropic highlighting. That should be it for highlights though. Now you want to move to transparent. Actually, transparency you'll leave on defaults as well, because you're using an alpha map. As you can see here, we're using an alpha map, so don't go mess with your transparency here. Reflections you're going to leave at 0. Translucency you're going to leave off. You're not going to turn on subsurface scattering here. If you do turn that on, you'll find that it restricts you in some things that you can do when you start doing the render, when you jump into the render settings up here. We'll go through that in 2015, the render settings though, when I used Vue 2015, not here. But we do want to jump into effects, and effects here is the important part to remember for leaves and flowers to get them to render correctly. You want to set your diffuse color. This is for the leaf here at 60. It'll be different for the flower petals. You want the ambient to be at 40, which it is. Again, that'll be different for the flowers. Luminous at 0, contrast at 0, they're default values. But you do want to set the backlight here. Now, generally it comes in at 0 and you'll leave it at 0 for most parts of your model. But anything to do with a plant, so a leaf or a flower, you want to change the backlight, because that's what will affect that dark shadowing that I tell people often forget and it just looks weird. So on the leaf you want to pull up your backlight to 40%. And that'll stop that dark shadowing happening. I think we've either got 1 or 2 leaves in this model, I can't remember. So that's basically it for the leaf though. So just again to go through it, you've got your texture map, your normal map, your alpha map, and a specular map. Okay. And in the effects tab, For leaves, you've got backlight turned on or pulled up a bit to 40%. It's really important. Okay, let's move on to the next texture. Okay, we do have 2 leaf textures here. So again, this one is called leaf 2, I think, from memory. Yep. I just created 2 leaf textures to put a bit of variety in that the look of the ivy. We do have a normal map for leaf 2 as well, so let's pull that in. That's that one there. Again, I created those normals just using nulled, K-N-A-L-D. Same program I used to do the rest of the normal mapping. Again, with the highlights, we're going to pull that up to a white. Again, we're going to turn variable highlights on, and we're going to edit the function. We're going to Control-C there, Control-V there. We're going to load up the specular map for leaf 2, which is this one here. I'm just going to call this one leaf 2 texture. And this one's going to be called leaf 2 specular. And this one's going to be called leaf 2 normal. Again, remember to change your normal to gamma of 1. I better check the other one, I wasn't sure if I did that. Again, we're going to connect up our highlights here to our specular map, the grayscale output. And we'll go OK. Where are we here? We're going to go 50 on the global intensity. We're going to go 60 on the global size. And we're going to leave that at 0. No transparency. No reflection. No translucency, but again with the effects we're going to pull it up here at the backlight to 40. We can leave the rest of them on defaults here for the leaves anyway. I'm just going to jump back quickly. I want to make sure that I changed the gamma on my normal map here. I think I did. Yeah, I did. Okay, good. Okay, now the buds, the flower buds themselves. Again, you're going to have to put a backlight on them, otherwise they're going to render out too dark. The shadows will look weird. So I'm not using a specular map on the buds though. I'm only using spec maps for the leaves. I don't think I'm even using a normal map for the buds. I'll just double check quickly though. I'm pretty sure I'm not. No, I'm not using a spec map for the bud. Not using a spec map for the buds, not using a normal map for the buds, and it'll be the same with the flower petals. I won't be using a normal map or a specular map. You don't want, on a flower petal is very smooth usually, it doesn't, you don't want to put a normal map on it, you don't want it bumpy. Those two, alright. So, I'm going to call this buds. But again, there are no bumps on it, so no normal mapping. The highlights though, we're going to make the highlight color white again. The intensity on this we're going to bring up a bit more, so we're going to make that 60. The global highlight size we're going to take to 30. And we're going to leave that at 0 at the bottom. Now for the stamen here, the transparency we're going to bring up to 2. So for the leaves we didn't use transparency. For the flower buds, the closed flower buds, we are going to use a transparency, global transparency of 2%. Don't go too high. We're not going to use any blurred transparencies. We're going to leave the refraction index at 1. We'll leave the flare at 39 and the span at 10%. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to put a slight bit of transparency through that flower bud, because now we're working with the actual flowers themselves and the bud of the flower. So a little bit of transparency we're going to start using there. Reflections, we're not going to use any reflection. We're not going to use any translucency. We are going to change the effects here though to, we're going to pull up the diffuse color here to 80% from 60. That's going to make it brighter. We're going to pull up the ambient color here to 92. That's going to pull in a lot more of the color of the bud. We're going to leave luminous at 0 and contrast at 11%. We're going to pull up the backlighting here to 90%. So we're really making sure we're not getting any weird shadowing happening on these flower buds. So 80% for the diffuse, so we're making it a lot brighter, like bringing in a lot more of the color on both the diffuse and the ambient color itself. So we're brightening both of those up, so 80 and 92%. And we're pulling the backlight right up to 90%. Do that with any flower that you're rendering out. If it's not a native view flower, if it's a flower you've imported from your 3D modeling program that you want to render in view, use these settings. And like I said, these are settings that I've come to use, I've discovered after using Vue for years and years. So they're generally good for everything, with regards to flowers anyway. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. I just want to make sure I named that correctly. No, I didn't. Okay. Right. Let's move on to the next one here. These are the stalks of the flower, and the way it is here will be fine. We don't really have to make any changes. There are no bump maps, no normal maps. We will pull the highlight up though to the white, and we're going to knock it back to about 20%. And that's really all we have to do for the stems themselves. I'm just going to rename that stems and make sure my texture here is named. Alright, let's move on to the next part of the flower. Now these are the actual flower buds themselves, the open flowers. You can see them here in the viewport. Again, I'm not going to be using a normal map. I am going to be using a white highlight. For these we're going to pull our global intensity to 20%. Our global highlight size to 30%. We're going to leave the filtering here at 0. Now transparency, we are going to use transparency on these, and the transparency we're going to make 20%. These are for the flowers themselves, not the buds, but now the open flower. We're going to use 0 on blurred transparencies. We're going to use a refraction of index of 1, and then we're going to leave 39 and 10 here for the intensity of the flare. We're not using reflection. We're not using translucency. And in the effects, we're going to again go to 80% here on the diffuse color, 92% here for the ambient color, 0 on luminous, 11 on contrast, and again we're going to bring the backlight up to 90. I'm going to call this one flower open. And again, just make sure I name it correctly here in my function editor. And let's move on to the next one. Okay, now these are the stamen. I'm just going to rename that again. So these are the stamen that are in the very middle of the flower itself. Again, we're not going to be using a normal map for those. Highlights, again, we're going to make it white. We're going to go to 60 on the global intensity for the highlights. We're going to go to 10% here on the global size, so we'll leave it at 10. And we're going to leave that at 0% on the the highlighting isotropic. Transparency, we're going to go to 2% here for global transparency. Blurred reflections at 0, refraction index at 1, and we're going to leave those at 39 and 10. We're not going to be using any reflection or any translucency. Again, there was a diffuse, we're going to be bringing that up to 80%. 92% on the ambient colour. That one there. 0% and 11% for luminous and contrast, and the backlight though we're going to pull up to 90. Alright, again I'm just going to rename my texture here. Okay. And we're up to the very last texture here now, which is the actual glass that the lamps are using. I'm not going to be using a normal, I did create a normal map for it. Let's have a look. I'm going to rename it lamp glass. I'm going to jump into my bumps and import my normal map. Here we have the normal map for that. Now you don't have to normal map this glass. Normally with glass you wouldn't normal map it because glass is very smooth, so it wouldn't benefit from a normal map. But I don't know if you can see this glass texture, because I took it from a piece of blown glass candelabra. It is textured quite a bit, so it probably will benefit from having a normal map. And when I created the normal map in Gnarled, I made it very fine. I didn't go really heavy on the detail of it, so I'll pull in the normal map. If when we start rendering it, it looks odd, we'll remove the normal map. But at the moment we'll leave the normal on. I'm just going to edit the function here. I'm going to call that texture. I'm going to call our normal. Remember to change our gamma here to 1. And it's just using the texture as an alpha map here at the moment. So the texture map is the alpha map. We are going to pull a highlight here, and we're going to pull the highlights up to white. And I'm going to pull the highlight back to about 50. Again, we'll play with the highlight colors when we start doing test renders. Everything else I'm going to leave the same. You see transparency here is set at 30%. Again, we'll play with those when we start doing renders to get that completely right. And that'll just, the transparency obviously is how transparent the actual glass is to the light inside. We'll play with that when we do renders. No reflection, no translucency, and we'll leave the effects the way they are at the moment, although we may pull the backlighting up on it again when we start doing our test renders. And we'll go okay. That's actually it though, guys, for the materials setup. We've got all of them done, so I think it's probably a good spot to leave it there for today. We've finally finished setting up our textures. Actually, I've just got to swap the targets out for JPEG, so we'll do that next week, but that's just an easy swap. So there's no more setting up of the textures, we're just swapping texture maps. But so that's that done. So when we come back on Monday next week, I will swap out the targets for JPEGs, and we will export the model so we can bring it into Eon View 2015. So we're almost completely done with View version 9 here. I can save out my file and we can call it a day for View 9. We will use it, like I said, when I come back on Monday next week, just so I can pardon me, so I can export the model and change those to JPEG textures, and then we can bring it into View 2015 and start setting up our environment for it, our 3D environment with vegetation, grass, trees, all that sort of thing. I will be back on again on Monday next week at 5 p.m. That's Monday US time at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Pardon me. I want to thank you guys for watching and hanging out with me. Thank you very much. Thank you guys in chat as well. It's always great chatting to you. If you want to know, if you want a reminder of when I'm going live, you can keep an eye on my Twitter page at PhilDoes3D. I always post 15 minutes before I'm about to go live. I keep a regular schedule. I'm always live at 5 p.m. Pacific time in the US on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. So I'll be back again on Monday next week. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. And yeah, I'll see you next week, guys. See ya.